Call the May 1st, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you do a roll call?
Commissioner Glenn?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Cohn?
Here.
Commissioner Rubio?
Here.
Commissioner Kendig?
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Here.
Commissioner Scoggin?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any additions or changes to that agenda? Any objections to approving the agenda as written? Hearing seen none, agenda is approved. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And with Patty Fisher, could you lead us in the pledge, please? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. That moves us on to the consent agenda. Minutes, regular meeting minutes, April 17, 2023. Introduction for public hearing quasi judicial matters, Resolution 2310. A conditional use permit in accordance with MSB 17-60, conditional use permit to operate an auto and metal salvage yard known as DeBox Auto Salvage LLC, located at 6450 West Jakes Road. Tax ID 17 North 2 West 22A009 and 17 North 2 West 22A010 within Township 17, Range 2 West, Section 22, Short Meridian. Public hearing May 15, 2023. Applicant Carter DeBach. Staff is Peggy Horton. Introduction for public hearing legislative matters. Resolution 23-13, a resolution of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Planning Commission recommending the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly adopt and fund a transportation infrastructure program for 2023. Public hearing May 15th, 2023. Staff is Brad Schwartz, Pre-Design and Engineering Division Manager. Any objection to approving the consent agenda is written? Hearing and seeing none, consent agenda is approved. Committee reports, I don't see any. Agency and staff reports, I don't see any. Land use classifications, we have none. That moves us to audience participation. And we have 3 minutes per person for items not scheduled for public hearing. This is where people can speak regarding Resolution 23-11 under unfinished business, because we don't have any audience participation under unfinished business. Okay, so I'll start in here first. And on our list, we have Patty Fisher.
There. Hello, my name is Patty Fisher. It's Fisher, and I am speaking on Ordinance 23-33, Resolution 23-19. I find it difficult to speak since there are two resolutions on tonight, and I have no idea which way you guys are going to go, but I'm going to address 23-19 specifically. I want to applaud the commission for preparing a serious comment on the gravel ordinance. This ordinance has gone through a number of different iterations, and given its very weak origin, it has never been a bill worthy of coming out of our assembly. Ms. Cohn's and Mr. Glenn's resolution makes a good compromise over what is a bad bill to start with. I do have some comments with regard to the resolution. The public has spoken out loud and long on this ordinance. We came here at least 4 times to speak to the commission. The primary problem with Mr. Tu's bill is that it does not provide for public comment. This resolution you are considering tonight provides possible public comment, but it does not, in my opinion, go far enough. An administrative permit provides public notice to those sites within 1/2 mile. What about comments from community councils, road service boards, fire service area boards? They have a huge stake in what happens in a community, and they would not be notified of a proposed site. So first off, public comment in the resolution is not quite adequate. Second, I don't believe it is appropriate for the planning director to be able to approve permits of this magnitude without public comment. I say this magnitude because gravel is mined and transported over a period of about 5 months a year, from mid-May to mid-October, using a 6-day week for 22 weeks with a 1,000 load gravel truck figure, which is in the resolution. That equates to between 7 and 8 truckloads out and 7 trucks back, or 14 trips over the road per day during those 5 months. That is, this level of extraction and transportation is not insignificant. Public notice and public comment is absolutely necessary. Given these comments, I strongly believe that Mr. Tu's ordinance is not necessary. Current code covers gravel permitting. Current code covering gravel permitting is working well. No problems have been stated. Permits are issued on a timely basis, and production has not been impeded. Please reject this ordinance. Thank you.
Carter DeBach. You signed up to speak to your permit?
Sir, I'm going to speak on May 15th when we're talking about a permit then.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just looking at the sign-up sheet. Your name's on here.
Okay. I apologize.
Steve Culligan.
My name's Steve Culligan, resident of Wasilla. Last name's Culligan, C-O-L-L-I-G-A-N. Wasn't planning to speak to this, but I'll just call this the Charlie Brown of ordinances, PC 23-11. The ordinance since the beginning has lacked identity, purpose of life from the beginning. It has been brought back from the dead more than a stray cat. Then in its 3rd and 4th life, Assembly gave it many shiny ornaments, dragging it to the ground. And it stood ugly and unwanted and with no purpose. The planning department has done a great job of rearranging those ornaments so it'll stand up, but it still lacks an identity and purpose as a tree. The gravel industry, Alaska Rock Products, who I represent, I'm not their lobbyist, I'm their executive director. I've been in the mapping and engineering and surveying business for over 30 years, and I help industry develop best practices and efficiencies in process. And it's been stated at the Assembly that that organization is scared of the competition. It's going to drive prices down. We really don't give a shit at the end of the day because it doesn't. It's nonsense. At the end of the day, there's a few people who want to eliminate the rules and not be accountable to anybody. And on the other hand, there is a real need. It's just not identified. The real need, and on my drive over here, I drove down Bogard. I passed 3 or 4 new developed lots that need to be regraded to make them buildable lots that add to the economy and have a purpose in life. And if there's anything, there was a boom in the early 80s in the borough, tons of platted parcels without a lot of contour data that are basically stuck and kind of held up that need to be regraded. Anchorage handles that through a regrading permit. This, however, is identified and is not identified. It's just that it needs to make something simpler to get into the mining business. And it's that simple opportunity that over the years, and the reason the current ordinances are in place, because that simple, I'm not going to follow the rules, has gotten entire industry in trouble. And that's the reason we're speaking. Costs us more to deal with the trouble and nonsense than it does to the real product of industry. To continue, please identify a need. Ask Mr. Tews to identify the need, such as regrading or developing parcels or adding the economy, rather than just not have to follow any rules. And then from that need, ask the planning department to develop a real process and requirements to address that need. It should be simple for a developer to develop parcels and make them something of value without being in the mining business. There's all sorts of other nonsense being discussed here, about heavy equipment and stuff for making gravel, and I'll make this short. The reality is you can't get that equipment on a 1 acre parcel. So it's kind of this endless discussion. The bottom line, if you're going to continue with this, I didn't ask you to just kind of burn the tree and the ornaments down at the moment, but if you're going to continue, address it and make all gravel pits within the buffer area. Mr. Tews will then have a conflict, and he's already conflicted. And the reason he didn't vote on his own words is because he does have a conflict. That being said, thank you for your time and appreciate it. As far as the industry goes, the bottom line is there's a process. I do think there is and we think there's a need, but it doesn't have to do with making the mining business easier. It has to do with identify the need to develop parcels.
Thank you, Steve.
Easier. Thank you.
DJ McBride.
I'm DJ McBride, msb.planning.commission. I am the RSA 15 Caswell Lakes Board Chairperson, and RSA 15 is located from mile 773 to mile 96 on the Parks Highway. This is the fourth time that I've driven a 3-hour round trip to speak on this issue. And as you are aware from RSA 15's resolution 04-23 that you received at your last meeting, the board is against ordinance 23-033 amending MSB 17-30 conditional permit to allow for an exemption of the extraction of 10,000 cubic yards annually with a mere registration procedure. This registration process eliminates the public notification and comment process. Thus, the RSA boards in the area would have no notice or even an ability to comment about the impacts of earth material extraction sites on the roads within our RSA, never mind cutting out public comments from residents. It should be noted that extracting 10,000 cubic yards from a parcel would generate about 1,000 truck trips, loaded truck trips per year per each registered site, in addition to having registrations span 5 years, which means 5,000 dump truck load trips per site for the life of that registered site. Having multiple extraction sites, all utilizing the same roads to truck materials for the rural roads, on the rural roads that serve as collectors for miles of residential roads, would adversely impact our already marginal and substandard gravel roads. I heard a planning commission member say that if there were so many substandard roads, why not upgrade them? Our RSA had $15,000 in funds left over from last year in our budget to do road upgrades, despite having one of the highest mill rates in the borough. We'd love to upgrade all our roads to standard, but there aren't any funds to do so. Keep in mind that upgrading rural roads to standards means that they still would all be gravel roads, which means that there would be dust control issues, which not only the RSA can ill afford, but would also harm the health of local residents. Once again, I'd like to restate that the local rural RSAs would be paying the additional cost for road repairs after thousands of dump truck loads of materials per year per registration are trucked over our mostly gravel roads. How many of these registrations are going to be issued per area? The current permit process establishes the standards addressing sufficient setbacks, lot areas, buffers, noise mitigation, dust, air quality, road maintenance, and other safeguards for the residents of the borough. These standards can be currently enforced by the permitting process and follow-up inspection. Where's the allocated funds to police these registered sites? Once again, I'd like to say it's obvious that the current permitting requirements are working well. Why are we fixing what isn't broken? Thank you.
If there's nobody that hadn't signed up, they'd like to speak, come up now. Please state your name and spell your last name, please.
Yeah, my apologies for not signing up earlier. My name is Rod.
Excuse me, sir, can you sign the sign-in sheet after you're done speaking?
I will,
Thank you.
yes. My name is Rod Hanson. I am on the Communications Committee with the North Lakes Community Council. And so I'm here speaking on behalf of the North Lakes Community Council tonight. I'm not going to repeat what the three previous speakers have touched on, but generally those are the same kinds of concerns and comments we hear from our community members. Our largest frustration is that the previous ordinance and now 23033 proposed ordinance have come forward without anybody coming to the North Lakes Community Council for comment or input. There's been nothing in writing, no request for our input. No one from the Planning Commission, Mr. Fernandez, who's in District 6, Mr. Rubio, neither have attended our meetings to speak with us about it. Assembly members Yunt and Fonoff have not spoken with us about it. We have reached out to the assembly members with our objection to this ordinance. And again, our issue is you're not talking with us. We have a lot of input. You heard a lot of it. We agree with generally the themes and comments you heard from the other commenters tonight. But for goodness sake, reach out when you're getting ready to do an ordinance like this and seek the input of the community councils. That's why they were formed, and we're happy to get involved and work on compromises. We've talked about compromise ideas that we believe could help a future change if one is necessary. We don't feel one is necessary now at all. So those are our comments, again, from the North Lakes Community Council. I'll go ahead and sign in.
Okay, I don't have any other-body in the audience signed up, but if you would like to speak, if you would come up, say your name and spell your last name and sign the sheet after you speak.
So, Mr. Chair, apparently the lines were dropped, so we're trying to dial back in so people can jump back in.
Okay, we're going to take a break just for a second.
That extension is not valid. Welcome to the Synexus Conference Manager. Joining conference.
Are we live?
Check 1, 2. Yeah, okay. We have a bunch of people on there. I know if you want to give an update, just say like, if anybody wants to raise their.
Okay, we got one more in the audience. Okay, ma'am, we're ready now. We're back. We got offline for a little bit for you people on the phone. We're back. We're back. We'll be getting to anybody that's on the phone in just a minute who would like to speak on their audience participation. But ma'am, your name and spell your last name.
Thank you. My name is Susan Kay, K-A-Y. Been living in the Valley for quite a long time. I'd like to mention that we have gravel in the Valley. Anchorage is out of gravel, and we're treating our gravel like it isn't important and it's not valuable. It is a very valuable commodity, and I think it needs to be extracted responsibly. And I don't believe that there are obstacles for somebody who would like to excavate more than what the limit is now. If it's too challenging in our processes, then maybe we need to look at our process on how somebody might want to excavate 10,000 cubic feet. Is anybody saying no? I think it's just an application and a process. And I don't believe what we have is broken. I think there's greed, and I don't think it should be running our planning commission. I don't think it should be running running my neighborhood that way. I live on an oasis of gravel. I wish I had dirt, but we have a new amount of time. The last subdivision that came in, I didn't even know there was land on the other side of that little pond. And 3 of my neighbors had to drill new wells because it had an impact on our water table. Extracting gravel makes a difference in lots of different things. I would recommend doing something very unpopular, and that is to tax our gravel for any gravel leaving our valley. And it could pay for some of the roads that are going to be destroyed by heavy trucking 16, 18 hours a day because we have short days. I understand why they run around those trucks. I would also, and I didn't do my homework, and I apologize. I thought we already voted this no. But I would like to find out, it might be curious to you also, to find out those who are going to be impacted, meaning excavating more rock, how often those companies are cited by not having flaggers up, by overextending, by taking more than what they said they were going to take, and how many fines have been levied against these companies that are already breaking the rules by taking too much and not following the procedures. I don't think we need it new, and I think we should be treating this gravel as something more valuable than just rocks, because it is a finite resource. It's a lot of excavating next to neighbors that might have a problem with it. Thank you. And our water.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that didn't sign up that would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on to the phone. And I want to remind people online that this is the time to speak regarding resolution number 23-11. That is also ordinance 23-033. And if you will, if you wish to speak, press *3 on your phone. And we have somebody.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Yes, Tamara Smid, S-M-I-D is the last name. Yes, I'd like to reiterate what previous speakers that I heard anyway were saying about land use and that sort of thing. I think it's really important in any case, wherever there are extractions taking place, that those people who might be affected via through water table problems or through property damage and property values depleted, a public hearing process has got to be maintained. It seems to me that that's what local government is supposed to do. It's supposed to deal for the general good, not for individual enrichment at the expense of others. So I'm really saddened by these recurring moves to reduce public involvement in public affairs, because it's bound to reduce the credibility and the electability of those responsible. So please stop accepting resolutions that mean excluding public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online.
Hi, my name is Camden Yaley, Y-E-H-L-E, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Meadow Lakes Community Council membership today. And I feel like I've said everything that we've had to say on this. So I'll keep it to what this ordinance doesn't seem to do. And what I keep hearing from people is that the current rules don't, people seem to want more rules. They would like better enforcement of the existing rules and better mitigation of the circumstances after the fact. Like, what are we doing with these pits and why are they being allowed to languish for decades, just as open holes and scars that just seem to sit there for a long, long time. So barring new and better regulations, we would really like to see better enforcement of our existing regulations. And we don't see that this ordinance does any of that. We feel very strongly about the public engagement process with the CUP. And for now, that's the only way that we can get any input on noise or water stuff or reclamation after the fact. So please, I let this one go. And if you want to talk about gravel, come up with something that actually addresses what people's concerns really are. And this doesn't seem to be it. And I'll leave it at that for today.
Thank you. Next online.
Hey, this is Stephen Edwards, EDWARDS. So I've already stated the road board's general opposition to this, but I wanted to focus just this time on this. I keep hearing about how it's going to cut down on truck miles. And I mentioned it before, but no one really cares about truck miles on the Parks Highway. So I want you to picture, if you would, 3 streets, Street A, Street B, and C on Hollywood, just for an example, and coming off of Vine and the Parks. So each of them builds a house. A person on each street builds a house. And person A on Street A hauls in 10 loads. And it comes down the Parks 5 miles, down Vine 1, Hollywood 1, and then on to Street A. And those 10 loads don't really cause any damage, even though Street A is substandard, like so many. Street B has the same situation, builds a house, they haul 20 loads. Same situation, 5 miles on the Parks, 1 on Vine, 1 on Hollywood. Nobody cares. And then there's, 20 loads, say, because they need more gravel on B. And, maybe there's some ruts and stuff, but it's not too bad, and it kind of washes away. And then Street C, same thing, except they haul 30 loads. They need a lot of gravel. And there is some ruts and cutting, but the maintenance contractor picks it up the next time, and everybody forgets about it. Well, now each of those streets their neighbor decides to build a gravel pit. So now Street A has 1,000 trucks running out Street A onto Hollywood, Vine, and wherever. And Street A falls apart, and the RSA has to pay to rebuild it. Street B has a gravel pit. Same thing, 1,000 trucks on Street B, substandard road, no road base, poorly constructed, like so many, and it falls apart, and the RSA has to pay to rebuild it. And then, of course, Street C has the same situation. They're all a mile apart, all accessing paved roads, all falling apart and being rebuilt at taxpayer expense just because of these gravel pits, 1 on A, 1 on B, 1 on C, versus the first situation where there's more truck miles perhaps, but each person's road does not get impacted by this. So if you can picture that scenario, it kind of takes the wind out of this. Truck miles is the only thing we're concerned about. Road board's concerned about damage to individual roads that are poorly constructed and that cannot handle that kind of traffic. So the
Your host
resolution,
the conference.
resolution.
This conference will continue for 60 minutes.
Did I get cut off?
Yeah, but your time was just about up. Go ahead and finish up where you were.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'll wrap it up. It's just that resolution is a good help. I appreciate somebody putting some work into trying to make that a little bit better. So that's a good help. But the idea of just getting rid of this and going back to the original system is a better idea. So that's what I'm encouraging. Thank you.
Okay, next online.
Hello, my name is Ruth Wood, W-O-O-D. I've written and testified on the gravel issue too many times, but here I am again, and unfortunately, you have to listen again. Since the public hearing is closed, I'm speaking now to Resolution 2311 and the draft resolution. I still oppose Resolution 2311 for all the reasons you've heard before. And I oppose the draft resolution as well. I appreciate that the draft resolution is an attempt to fix Resolution 2311 or the ordinance it would support. But unfortunately, there isn't a simple fix because there's no need to change MSB Code 1730. I have concerns about the draft resolution because one is because of the reference to MSB 1703 public notification. When you look at that code, it's all about public notification for public hearing. But I can't see that there will be any public hearing under this legislation. Furthermore, I don't think a director should have the authority to issue an administrative permit of this magnitude without a public hearing. And I cannot see that there is an appeal process for a director's decision. The state, for example, has a process for appeal to the commissioner for a department or division decision that you disagree with. So there's just, you can't fix, well, first, the code isn't broken, so that doesn't even need a fix. Then you come up with ideas and more ideas, and you try to fix that, you try to fix the next one, and you can't do it. So I say, please tell the Assembly that this is a bad ordinance, and since the people oppose it, and they have given no reason for doing it, you oppose it too. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Okay, my name is John Strassenberg, Strassenburgh. And I'm speaking tonight on Resolution 23-11 and also 23-19. I attended and testified on March 7th. Listened to the testimony for 2.5 hours, roughly. It was good testimony. It was constructive. And yet the Assembly chose to ignore the testimony. They said that they were going to rework when Hughes withdrew it. He said they were going to work on it. And maybe this is on the 21st. I can't remember the dates. But anyway, it was supposed to have been worked on. They ignored the Nowers amendments, and basically the new ordinance just has a new name. It doesn't have a new substance. And there's still no public notice. There's still no consideration of adverse effect on neighborhoods. There's still no consideration of diminished property values or damage to roads. You've heard all of this. And I think that Resolution 2319 gets us part of the way there. But it has some potentially helpful ideas, but it's somewhat ambiguous in places and counterproductive in others. And I think it needs a lot more thought. And to be honest, I don't understand the administrative permit and the public process that might be associated with that. So I think the solution here is very, very clear. It's to to write a recommendation to the Assembly that it leave the existing code in place. The Assembly has given no reason why it ignored the public comment and all the reasons they gave. They've given no reason for changing the existing code. So I just hope the Planning Commission, I hope you guys just say, hey, just say no, leave the code as it is. Okay, thank you.
Next online. Caleb, we have anybody?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes. Carolyn Kyle, last name Keil. I'm very disappointed. I live at Big Lake near Mr. Harriet's gravel pit on both sides of the road. West Lakes Boulevard is a road that is ready for an accident to happen. It cannot sustain somebody who purchased properties on both sides of the road, personal use permits. That disclosure was made when the properties were purchased. Now they're trying to supersize, commercialize these venues without taking into consideration the multiple times the public has raised their voices, raised their concerns on multiple levels. It's time for the Planning and Zoning Committee to tell the Assembly, which I'm embarrassed that the Assembly is supposed to represent their constituents. Although there seems to be a lack of representation when you have a majority of them that want to keep regurgitating this ordinance to make it happen. About 88% of the people that have voiced their concerns as I have. What is wrong with our current local government is you have to listen to the people. You can't pander to owners of properties that want to create a revenue for themselves in their later years and go on down the road. It's not fair to the community. Big Lake Community Council has a planning 3-year plan. They don't even want these gravel pits that are in our area to be used for 1,000 truckloads. I can tell you that the current personal use that both of these pits are being not properly monitored. They're being, he's taken out more gravel than he is supposed to. If you increase this, if you have character flaws where the dollar is the only reason for this being regurgitated over and over again, how are you going to maintain any integrity if you increase it through your ordinance? It's time to stop the insanity. This is not anti-small business gravel pit owner. This is a reality. These are personal use permits in a setting to where it is a community. It affects the wildlife. It affects the safety. You can't put a screening plant in any personal use permit. That takes it off the chart. Currently, there is a screening in these gravel pits. I just say vote no. I'm going to start charging you guys for my time having to take to push back. Please listen to the people. Thank you.
Next person online.
Hello, Diane Lada, LADA resident at Big Lake, Alaska. I'm just calling in to, I'm hoping that you won't ignore the public testimony that's ongoing. Closer to the 90% of people that really are against it. I'm hoping that my ask to the planning and on to the Assembly is what the concern for ignoring testimony and forfeiting, taking away our right to due process if you take out the public input. That is our right to due process. it is concerning that you'll be taking that away. The next step really is hydrologic study. What really will suffer the most besides property is water, and I value water. A lot of us do. I'm hoping that you'll have the Department of Environment Conservation speak to this at the next meeting. It'd be good to get their input on the hydrologic conditions in relation to how they affect the water that we are on, lake water, the water that we drink, the water tables, the wells. It'd be great to have someone representative of Fish and Game at these to then look at those studies and look at the effects of the water that we so long for to be with. We look forward to the melt and to take care of our lakes. We already have some issues with petroleum, but with gravel and screening, it would be great to hear from the DEC how we're going to really monitor the mining. I know that those the mining that is taking place throughout Alaska in very faraway places has a ton of regulations on them, and good for them to follow process and meet those regulations. We would be forfeiting and taking that away on these small pits. Please vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online.
Hello, this is Sandra Eggleston, Eggleston. My understanding is that Ordinance 23033 would increase the administrative permit of gravel extraction up to 10,000 cubic yards, with the public only within a half a mile being notified. And I feel that all that could be affected, not just those within a half a mile, should be guaranteed to have a voice in the location of a pit and the requirements under which the pit would be operated. My husband and I own 10 acres off of the Hidden Hills Road in Caswell area. If someone in the Caswell area were to extract 10,000 cubic yards of gravel, everyone living in this large area would be affected. And this proposal completely cuts the public out of the process for operations extracting that huge amount. So I too hope that it is not, that you would not pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online. We don't have anybody else. Is there anybody in the audience that hasn't spoken would like to speak on audience participation? Oh, I'm sorry. We got online. One more. Go ahead.
Yeah, name is Dewey Bitler, Bitler. And I got a question for you. Do you guys take into consideration all the previous testimony?
This isn't a question period. If you'd like to speak to whatever you're concerned about, but it's not a question and answer for the commissioners.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just saying there's probably been about 75 different people comment on the gravel ordinance, and basically they don't want it changed. Just leave it the way it is. And the public comment and the public notification is the main concern. People want to have a say in what's going on in their country. You know, this is a democracy. You have to have public comment. Everybody wants to have public comment on what's going on around them. And two's main reason for changing this is the truck miles. So it's cheaper to build a house, but that's false, because once the house is built, it's going to be sold for whatever market value is. And that's, you know, just take into consideration everything that everybody said already. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Caleb, was anybody else online? Okay. Once again, anybody in the audience that hasn't spoken would like to speak? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, is there any objection to closing audience participation? Audience participation is closed. Okay, public hearing quasi judicial matters. Resolution 2309, a conditional use permit in accordance with MSB .70, regulation of alcoholic beverage uses of an alcoholic beverage dispensary bar known as Fairview Inn, located at 13625 East Main Street, and that's Talkeetna. Tax ID 7000, Block 1. Block 12, Lot 20, -1, located within Township 26 North, Range 5 West, Section 24, Stewart Meridian. Applicant Hans Axelson for Fairview Inn. Staff Richard Benedict. Mr. Benedict, if you want to.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Rick Benedict, and I'm a Planner 2 with the Development Services Division. It's my pleasure to provide the Commission with an overview of the proposed conditional use permit modification this evening. The staff report for PC Resolution 2309 can be found starting on page 49 of your packets. Hans Axelson, on behalf of the Fairview Inn, has applied to modify an existing conditional use permit for an alcoholic beverage dispensary. The applicant is proposing to add an additional beer garden that will front East Main Street and operate seasonally between the months of May through September. The applicant also seeks to modify the original beer garden's operating schedule to allow for year-round use. A conditional use permit is required for the modification of existing conditional uses in accordance with MSB Title 17, Chapter 70, Section 030. The Fairview Inn is located at the corner of Main Street and D Street in downtown Talkeetna. It has been in existence since 1921. In 1984, the borough issued pre-existing legal nonconforming status for the operation of the Fairview Inn's beverage dispensary license. In 1995, a conditional use permit was approved for the original beer garden that was added to the north side of the Fairview Inn. In 2013, a modification to the conditional use permit was approved, allowing for amplified music to be played in the original beer garden. The original beer garden was permitted for seasonal use during the months of May through September. MSB Title 17, Chapter 3, Section 020 directs public notice for all conditional use permits. On March 15, 2023, a total of 51 notices were mailed to all property owners within 600 feet of the site and to the Talkeetna Community Council. The public hearing notice was published in the March 15, 2023 edition of the Frontiersman newspaper. The application material was posted on the borough's website on March 9, 2023. The public notice, application material, and a request for comments were emailed to the Talkeetna Community Council, borough offices, and outside agencies on March 10, 2023. 2 positive responses were received from members of the public. The Talkeetna Chamber of Commerce provided a written statement supporting the issuance of a modified conditional use permit. The Matsu Borough Permitting Center responded indicating that driveway permits were required on all lots in which vehicles access borough roads. No response was received from the Talkeetna Community Council. MSB Title 17, Chapter 70, Section 100 requires the borough to consider certain factors such as whether adequate parking facilities exist to accommodate a reasonably expected increase in demand for parking that may be created by issuing a permit. In addition, it requires that granting a permit will not be harmful to the public. The Main Street Talkeetna District only requires that businesses maintain at least 2 parking spaces for employees at the rear of the business. The Talkeetna Comprehensive Plan encourages the community to maintain a small town atmosphere, to keep it a pleasant place to visit, and to preserve and enhance its historic essence. The applicant proposes to reduce the number of parking that the current conditional use permit requires on site from 13 to 10, and to move the current parking area fronting East Main Street to a parcel located at the rear of the business on the corner of North Alley and D Street. By relocating parking, the applicant intends to reduce vehicular traffic along East Main Street to address public safety concerns related to pedestrian and bicycle traffic. In addition, the applicant intends to restore the character of the Main Street District by adding a 3-foot picket fence surrounding the area where the original parking lot existed. This area will serve as the new beer garden upon approval of this conditional use permit modification. In light of comments received from the public and local entities, borough staff recommends approval with conditions of this conditional use permit modification for alcoholic beverage uses located at 13625 East Main Street. The draft resolution containing these recommendations can be found in your packet. starting on page 136. That concludes my staff report, and I'll be happy to take questions from the Planning Commission. Hendrik Wessel, the majority owner of the Fairview Inn, is also in attendance if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Okay. Do any commissioners have questions for Mr. Benedict? Okay. At this time, we'd like to open public hearing on Resolution 2309. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this resolution? Okay. Is anybody online?
Mr. Chair, just a procedural matter. I believe that the applicant is given 15 minutes to give their presentation on this matter.
Okay.
Before the public hearing. And then they'll have
Okay, it's just,
5 minutes.
I'm just following the
Okay,
script.
apologize. Yep.
Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
I don't really have anything to say other than if you have any questions.
No, that's fine. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thanks. Okay, so nobody's on the phone. If there's nobody testifying, is there any objection to closing public hearing? Hearing seeing none, public hearing is closed. So I would ask you if you had any questions about comments were made, but there were no comments made. So I'll now entertain a motion for Resolution 2309.
I'll move adoption of Resolution 2309.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I've been to this establishment before, and it's kind of a gem in Talkeetna, and it seems to be well run, well maintained, and I support this request.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there any objection to the resolution? Hearing, seeing none, motion carries. Okay, public hearing legislative matters. I don't see any. Unfinished business. How do we handle unfinished business? Unfinished business, Mr. Strong.
Well, Mr. Chair, Alex Strawn, Planning Director for the Borough. I did do a staff report on this matter. I think there was a motion to approve. We had a public hearing, which was closed. So it's kind of wherever the Planning Commission wants to take it from here. I did work with two planning commissioners to develop a resolution that could be substituted if this resolution were to not pass. But I guess I'm at the will of the commission. If anybody wants a recap of our existing regulations or what this ordinance does, I'm happy to do that or answer any questions that you have. I guess one thing I could do is respond to a couple of questions or assertions that were made during public testimony that I think should be cleared up. One is that MSB 1703, which is our public notification process, does apply to administrative permits. That would be in 1730-035C. And the way administrative permits right now work for gravel permits is it's all the same application material that you'd have for a regular conditional use permit. The big difference is it still requires public notification. The big difference is the adjudicator is the planning director, which is myself. And when we do have these, I do get a staff report. I do sit at the dais. I do take public testimony. Everybody's given 3 minutes to speak. And then a decision is made, a permit is issued with conditions and everything that you'd expect with a conditional use permit. And then that decision is appealable by the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. 1539-030A1 essentially says that any officer of the borough that makes a decision of this matter, this type of decision, it is appealable to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, just the same as if a conditional or the Planning Commission were to make a decision. I guess with that, I'll answer any questions that you have. If you need a refresher, I'm happy to do that.
Is there any questions? Just so I'm clear. So Basically, there's a public hearing. Okay, and people could testify, and instead of 7 of us making the decision, you make the decision. Is that correct?
That is with our current administrative permit process.
Right.
Correct.
And it would still stand regardless of the 2,000 or 10,000?
So the administrative permit would still, if with this ordinance, the administrative permit would still be in place. And it would be anything, if it would be an option for anybody who wanted to have anything less than 7,000 cubic yards indefinitely, or as much material as they want within a 2-year period. The administrative permit would be an option. If this ordinance were to pass, then another option that could be on the table, if it's under 10,000 cubic yards and they meet the standards, they could do this registration process.
Right, but still with public testimony involved.
So the registration process would not have any public testimony or any public process.
That's where I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Okay, just so we're all clear on that.
Alex, so essentially, if I understand correctly, really we've taken this and it's gone back to where it's almost the administrative permit without the public testimony. Is what we've just kept adding. Everybody's kept adding different amendments to it. Is it pretty much? Is that where we're at? I guess. I mean, it seems like we've got 2 of the same things almost.
So, Alex Strawn, Planning Director. No, the registration process is a much simpler process than the admin permit process. The administrative permit, as it is now, would require a person who wants to do a commercial gravel pit to come up with a plan to identify, where their berms are going to be, where their traffic routes are going to be, the type of machinery they're going to use, if they're going to have a screening plant or crusher or whatever it may be. They would have to submit some information about what they're going to do. With the registration process, it would be very limited information that we'd receive. They would just be saying, this is how much material we're going to process. And then they could just haul that 10,000 cubic yards for 1 year, and they'd have to reapply every year.
Mr. Coe?
Because we've seen this resolution or the ordinance 8 times now as of today, we were hoping when we tried to do a compromise with the resolution where it would allow public comment, and where we took all of the public comments and tried to put something together as a compromise. I know this isn't perfect, but it is something where hopefully the assembly will have some input from the commission that says there are some options that they can look at. We are only advisory. We are not here to legislate. So that was the whole purpose of what we came up with in the resolution. I just wanted to clarify that.
So just as a point of clarification, Alex, so the current administrative process goes up to 7,000. Is that correct?
So it's a little complicated. There's options.
Okay.
So we have, like, for instance, we have one gravel pit out in the Butte where they actually they process 7,000 cubic yards worth of material, and that permit is indefinitely. So they went through the whole entire process, the administrative permit process, and they have a permit to mine 7,000 cubic yards indefinitely on their site. There's been very few of them. Most of the administrative permits that we do are larger. They can haul any amount of material, but it has to be within a 2-year period. And usually those are associated with a road project. If there's a road project going through and somebody has a good site with a lot of good gravel, they'll apply for an admin permit. They'll get that, and they can just kind of let it rip for 2 years. Of course, with conditions that are applied, they're put onto that permit saying, hey, you may have to increase this buffer on the west side, or you may have to access your gravel pit from a different road, or whatever it may be. But they can haul any amount of material within 2 years. Yeah.
All right. So when I'm reading 2319, basically what I'm getting is it says, let's reject 23033, the whole idea of the registration process. We've got the status quo, except that it beefs up the administrative part from 7 to 10. Is that it? And then it adds some things about how, you can't dig holes. You gotta reclamation is required, that kind of stuff. You can take down hills, but not dig holes. Some things that I think most people would think are pretty good ideas. But at its core, we're really at status quo with a slight bump up for what can happen in the administrative process. Is that right? Is that a fair way to read that?
That's correct. I mean, that's pretty good assessment. There's some other things on there. But yeah, it is saying reject the ordinance and change the existing code to do a couple of different things.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Strong? Okay, I will entertain a motion for Resolution 23-11. No, else.
So I believe, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's already been a motion to approve Resolution 23-11. And so now there would be a question of whether to modify it or take a vote on it.
It would come under amendments. First, we've got to put it on the table, then we can amend it. Okay, so I'll take a motion, entertain a motion for Resolution 23-11.
Commissioner Cohn, I make a motion.
Okay.
You have to say it one more time, please.
For Resolution 23-11.
I make a motion to put Resolution 2311 in for approval.
And is that good enough? Okay.
So I believe that's already been made at the last meeting. Is that correct? Yeah. I believe that motion was made at the last meeting and that's on the
seconded.
floor.
Okay, so it's already been made and seconded. All right, excuse me.
It was just never voted on.
It was never voted on. So now we're at discussion and there could be proposed amendments at this time.
Okay, and can I, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand the process and what we're doing. So are we doing an up and down vote on that first and then we look at amendments?
We have to make amendments first.
So there's a couple of different ways to go about this. One thing the one direction the Planning Commission, if the Planning Commission is interested in adopting the 2319 instead of 2311, then you could either vote this resolution down and then make a motion to approve 2319. Yes, clerk. Yes.
Just read through the minutes, and the only motion that was made was that Commissioner Cohn moved to postpone the motion to tonight's meeting. So you do need to make a motion to put this on the table and then vote for it.
Which we got it first.
Yep.
I need a second. Correct. Put this on the table.
I'll second it for that purpose.
Okay. Now we're at discussion and possible amendments. Okay. Let's go. So we know what 2311, we know what 2311 is. What are the amendments that you would like to see? Commissioner Cohn.
Commissioner Cohn, I would recommend that what we do with 2311 is actually vote on it and then bring 2319 back to the table. That would be my motion.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Cohn. I think that is probably the cleanest way to do that. And then I think I'll save the remainder of my comments when we discuss 2319, but I do think that procedurally that's the cleanest way to do that.
Okay. So is there any objections to 2311?
Can I, sorry, through the chair.
The host has rejoined the conference.
It's likely my own ignorance and lack of experience on the Planning Commission. I've heard a lot about 20-19, 23-033, but I'm not, Is this all a part of 23-11? Because now we've got three different numbers going on and I don't know what I'm voting on.
Go ahead, Mr. Strong.
So I can clarify. So 23-033 is actually the ordinance number. That's not before you. That's actually the ordinance that you are making a recommendation on. There's two different resolutions. There's 23-11, which is
As is.
yeah, that is a recommending approval of the ordinance. And then there's 23-19, which has been worked on and is in the packet, which would recommend that the ordinance be failed and that the existing code be modified.
So what we would do is vote 2311 up or down. And if it's voted down, then we would introduce 2319. Am I got my numbers straight here? Okay. So right now, is there any objection to 2311?
Yes.
Okay.
Seconded, if necessary.
No, it's not necessary. There's objection. So let's go to the clickers. And let us know when you're ready.
Excuse
Okay.
me, can you clarify the yes and no vote?
Yeah, if you vote yes, means you approve the motion. Vote no, you do not.
So to be clear, so.
To
if you
vote this
if you-
down, you vote no.
Right.
To
So
vote
if you're
for-
voting yes, you're voting for the registration thing that was brought up to us. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I'm advocating, and I think others are, that we kill that. And
Well,
we,
that's why we need to press your clickers.
okay.
Through the chair, Commissioner
If
Cohen,
you
to
vote
clarify.
no, if you vote no, 2311 is gone. It's voted down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the motion fails.
Chair Kendig, the motion fails with Rubio, Cohn, Glenn, Allen, and Fernandez in opposition to it.
Okay. So now we want to make a motion for 2319.
Commissioner Cohen, I make the motion to approve Resolution 2319.
Can I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, discussion. You want to speak to your motion?
Commissioner Cohen? I feel like the things that we found as a compromise for this may not be perfect, but at least it's something for the assembly to review and maybe give them some thought process of some changes that they can make to the ordinance. But again, like I said previously, we are only advisory, and I understand that. And so the purpose of this was really to bring discussion to the table. I don't feel like I'm not married to this thing. You know, it's more of a just let's get some conversation going because the public has spoken over and over and over again. And yes, we have listened. So that was the purpose. So that the commission just doesn't give a no vote and they go back to having nothing. At least this way they have something from us. That was the purpose of it.
Any other, Rick?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I want to thank Commissioners Cohn and Glenn for their hard work on this. And, you know, I've been a very vocal opponent of this proposal from the Assembly, the 23033, and trying to convert this to a registration process. And I've been opposed to it for many of the same reasons that we've heard public comment. We've also, you know, community councils have weighed in, individuals have weighed in. And so, I oppose it for all of those same reasons. And maybe the biggest reason that I opposed it was that it didn't allow for, there to be, the registration process just doesn't allow for there to be the robust public comment that we get in a normal permit process or even in the administrative process. You know, and at the last meeting, as you will recall, I tried to push for an up or down vote at that time to try to kill this thing right then. And Commissioner Cohn responded that, hey, I think it's better that we send the assembly something and not just a no. And I think she was right about that. I think that was the right thing to do. And when I look at the current makeup of the assembly and the way this thing is proceeded, I just feel like these guys, it's like a dog with a bone. These guys are not going to give this up. And this proposal, 2319, makes some really minor concessions, minor tweaks that I think most folks can live with if they really look at this and they look at what's happening now with administrative processes and what the change would be. It's not a very big change. I think it's something that most folks could live with. And my hope is that if we send something like this to the assembly, that that we say, we're willing to work with you a little bit here, but we do have some limits on what we think is appropriate, that maybe that will be palatable and we can be done with this issue. That's what I'm hoping for. I'd love it if we didn't talk about gravel and changing the stuff, because there's so much important business to do here. So anyway, I thank my fellow commissioners for their work on this. I think it's a compromise that most folks can live with, and I'm going to support it today. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any further discussion?
Through the chair. Commissioner Fernandez here. I still have that fundamental, irking little question within me. That's why is this needed in our community? It does sound, again, I've never applied for a permit. I've never moved gravel, especially not at this level. So I'm all about streamlining processes and deregulating where it makes sense. I think, especially in the name of development and progress for a community that's growing the way that the Mat-Su Valley has for years and years and years now. But can anyone help me understand why changing what exists is necessary? It's just open question to the whole floor.
I think it's been debated and debated and debated. So, you're just going to have to vote the way you feel. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Strong.
I'm just going to weigh in on that one. And Alex Strawn, Planning Director, the justification for this, first of all, is in the informational memorandum. It essentially says that the gravel industry is overregulated, and there's a hope that this would bring the price of gravel down. And I certainly don't want to try to get into the mind of assembly members and speak for assembly members that would be sponsoring this. One of the concerns I did hear is when some engineering firms were asked how much it cost to process or to put together a gravel permit, two different engineering firms responded with around $20,000. And I think that's one of the big impetus for this. Do I think that a gravel permit application can be put together with somebody who's a little bit savvy for much, much less expensive than that? Yes. But if you're a company that just wants to throw money at it, that might be what you're looking at. And that's sort of what I've received is sort of, this is why we want to do this.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Is there any objection to Resolution 23-19? Hearing seen none, motion carries. That brings us to new business. Do we know new business? Commission business. I'm gonna jump in here right now because Alex is probably gonna have to fill you in after. I put in my resignation. This will be my last meeting, so Alex will be filling you in the process after that. So, and with that, Alex, you're up.
Okay, so Alex Strawn, Planning Director, hopefully Carol will help us figure out, we're going to have to come up with a new chair and go through that process at some point here. I think we'll put that on a subsequent agenda. So be thinking about if you're interested in being chair or if you have somebody you want to nominate. I think at the next meeting, we'll be tackling that. I believe that Mr. Allen is our vice chair currently, so something to keep in mind. Potentially.
What exactly do you want us to do? We do not rule on this. The Borough Assembly does. We have done the best we can. I don't know.
That's okay.
Recommendation. This is going to go forward. This is going to get passed.
And it's going to get passed
It's-
anyway, and the Planning Commission was going to get thrown under the bus.
Please,
Okay,
hearing's over, please. Okay. Hearing is
So-
over, please.
So also, I do want to throw out there that, we had like a sort of a special session with the Planning Commission a few months back where we did some training for parliamentary procedures and Open Meeting Act and things like that. I guess my question that I would like to put out to the Planning Commission is, would you like more training like that? Is there something in particular that you'd like to learn more about or become more solid in? I do want to put that out there that we'd be happy to put something like that together.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
For me, like a legislation 101, right? Like the processes, the procedures, the steps that are taken when something wants to be modified, or if there's a proposal but hasn't been approved. Is it an amendment? Is it a resolution? Is it something like that would just help me organize my thoughts into which one is this? Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to, Director comments?
That's all I have.
Okay. Anything from law? Commissioner Glenn? Commissioner Cohn?
Commissioner Kendig, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and you'll be missed. Also, I'd just like to say to the public, the fact that ordinance or the resolution was passed, we have no say in this, and at least this way, there's some opinion going forward to the assembly. The assembly makes their own decisions. We don't get to make those decisions, but they at least have some comments from us rather than a no or yes, because we've done that before. And we were hoping in this process that we won't see this for a 9th time. But I appreciate the other commissioners. I feel like we are getting better at this and learning. And as far as training goes, I'll take anything you can give us.
Commissioner Scoggin?
Yeah, I guess we heard a lot of public testimony, and they focus on the people that do the work poorly. And it's kind of someone commits a crime not everybody should be held to that same level. Not everybody's out there to make a mess, tear up roads. A lot of people won't do that. So anyway, that's just, I think you got to remember that it's like you can't just because you got one bad apple or two bad apples, you can't regulate everybody else that's doing it the right way. You'll never hear about people doing something good, hardly, right? I mean, you got to keep that in mind as well.
Okay. Anything from the clerk?
so we will be voting on chair and possibly vice chair, depending on how chair vote goes on May 15th.
Commissioner Fernandez?
No comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Allen?
I just wanted to say thank you, Commissioner Kendig, for your service. And I know this wasn't the first time you've been in public service for a long time, and I appreciate that. I appreciate anyone who's willing to volunteer their time in this way to help their community. So thank you for your service. And, when you do public work like this, you're never going to please all the people all the time, but you can just do the best you can. And I think, we don't, as a body, we don't always agree on everything, and we shouldn't. We should have vibrant discussions, and we do. But I know that every person sitting at this dais cares very deeply about this valley and wants what's best for it. And so if we've got that as a starting place, we'll be all right. So anyway, thanks for another productive meeting today.
Thanks. Commissioner Rubio.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you, Kendig, for your service. And then also thank you, Commissioner Cohen and Glenn, for the for 2319. I think it puts a lot more teeth in the game. Have we voted on 2311 last week or 2 weeks ago? I think this appeases the public, or should appease the public a lot more versus had we just voted on 2311, whether it was a yes or a no vote. So I think this makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of good in it, and anyone that's willing to do the research and looking to see what it provides is going to be very happy. So thank you.
And I've already spoke, Mike.
Mr. DeBach is sitting out here. I think there's been some confusion. Your hearing is when is it, the 15th? That's when you need to show up to testify.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just making sure
I
that,
just wanted to come to spectate, and then I thought that was a sign form, not a sentence.
okay, all right. Just making sure we're not putting you out there. Thanks.
Okay. And so with that, I guess we're adjourned at 7:21.